Hello and welcome into Suits and Laterals, episode number 7. I'm Mitch Gatsky, joined as always by my trusty co-host, E.R. Skilleter. How's it going, sir?
Great, my man. How are you?
Today was a weird day, I have to tell you. So,
Let's hear it.
on my way into work today, I take a turn to get on the street that my, the office is on. And this car's driving real slow in front of me, and I'm like, come on, I'm already like a minute and a half late. And
Story of your life.
yeah, pretty much, just a little bit off.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, come on, man, get out of my way, make a turn, something. And these two squirrels are playing on the, in between the grass, in between the sidewalk and the road. And they scurry into the street, and the first one runs out in front of this car and gets hit. And, like, I see it all happen, and this squirrel died in front of my eyes. And I've witnessed death, but never so sudden. And it really shook me. Like, on my way into work, I just saw something die. I'm like, wow, life is too short. And here I am. I have to go to my office job for 8 hours.
Man, I'm very sorry for your loss.
I mean, not a loss, just a life-changing event, I guess.
All right. Everyone, just a quick moment of silence for the squirrel that Mitch witnessed die today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get into some football,
Yeah,
man.
before we do that, I think it'd be a good idea if we gave out the contact info right now so that everyone listening can interact with us as they go through the podcast. So find me on Twitter at GreatGatsky, GATZK. Email me at mitch.gatsky@campuspressbox.com. Find the show on Twitter at Suits Laterals. No space, no underscore, no dot, no nothing. And email us at hello@suitsandlaterals.com. What about you?
Yep, you can get me on Twitter at Skilleter, Skilliter, and you can get me on my show email at evan@suitsandlaterals.com. So, looking forward to hearing from you.
So I think we should start here, because if anybody reads your picks, and I'm sure they do, I do, they'll know that you only had one loss this past week. First of all, congratulations are in order. That's a hell of a job to pick.
Yeah, thanks.
I mean, to pick every NFL game in a given week and only get one wrong is very impressive. And the one loss, are there any frustrations towards the Detroit Lions or the Philadelphia Eagles?
The Lions are hard to pick. They're hard to pick against, and they're hard to pick for, because they're so inconsistent. You know, they have weapons, especially offensively, and it's just they should beat a lot of teams, but they don't play well enough to do it consistently, and that's why it's so hard to pick. So I picked the Eagles to beat the Lions. The Eagles had a bye week, coming off a big win, a couple big wins. They were undefeated, for heaven's sake, and I feel like in any right man's mind or woman, we like
women could pick the games too, Evan.
Be
Come on.
here on the show. Yep, absolutely. You would pick the Eagles, but evidently that doesn't work. So I'm curious to know, as a Michigander and a Lions fan in general, what you thought, or what you think of the Lions' inconsistency in general.
Well, as far as the Lions' inconsistency is concerned, I've been seeing that week in, week out for my entire life. This was a typical Detroit Lions victory. Just when you think the team is done for, the couple of games that you think that they should have won with Tennessee and Chicago there. And then they've got the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles, who are on a roll, playing great offensively and defensively. And somehow the Lions find a way. I don't even know. I really don't know. Tell you the truth, I didn't watch the game, caught the highlights, because I figured it was an easy L for the Lions, truthfully. I'm just figuring they're going to take the loss and move on. But I need to know, are you more mad at Ryan Matthews for the fumble or your boy Carson Wentz for getting picked on the last drive?
Nah, I'm not mad. It is what it is. It would have been great to go undefeated in picks, but um, that was Carson Wentz's first opportunity to make a game-winning
Yes.
drive or to orchestrate a very very impressive drive, and unfortunately he failed. It was his first interception of the year, which is also a little disappointing. But I don't think the Eagles are done. I think Wentz will likely do one of two things. He'll either learn from this and grow, or he'll spiral downward. Everyone's waiting for this rookie quarterback to crumble. But I don't think he's that type of player, especially not in that situation with the great coaches he has around him, the quarterback guys, the offensive minds that are coaching him. And so I think he keeps getting better. I think they'll rebound from this. The Steelers, they got destroyed by the Eagles, and that was the best thing that could ever happen to them. And they came out and destroyed the Chiefs, and then had a big game yesterday, or Sunday, excuse me. So I think the Eagles will be fine. I'm not really disappointed or mad at anyone. It's just one of those things where you never know with the Lions.
So the Eagles no longer undefeated, but there is one NFL team that is still perfect. The Minnesota Vikings. This team, we keep talking about it week in, week out. This team, we're going to have to do updates. I mean, every week I think we need an update on things until they lose because, first of all, having an undefeated team, just one left in the league, is exciting. And two, it's the way that this team is winning. It's defense and just doing the little things, the fundamental things that win football games. They're showing you how to do it.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with the Vikings. And like you said, it's a defensive team. They're not a team that if you like seeing points and you like seeing flashy offenses, they're not the team to watch. But they're going to continue to get it done. Their defense is so stout. I said it last week. I'll say it every week. Mike Zimmer is probably the best defensive mind, one of the best defensive minds in the NFL. And the Vikings just have the pieces offensively to continue to get the job done. Sam Bradford, I think he's in a perfect situation where they're not expecting him to put up massive amounts of touchdowns. He just needs to make smart plays and lead the offense down the field. And even the Vikings can even be content with field goals. I mean, they give up so few points that if they can get 4 or 5 field goals in a game, they're going to be fine. So all they need Bradford and the offense to do is dink and dunk down the field and get some points. I mean, it's such a good situation for Sam Bradford, and it'll be fun to watch the Vikings against the Packers again later on this season.
Last show, we talked about the Arizona Cardinals and some of the struggles that they've had. They showed some signs of life this past week with a 33-21 win over the 49ers. Evan, what did you take away from last Thursday night's game?
Yeah, so in my picks, I actually wrote that this would be one of the best things to happen. Or I'm sorry, Carson Palmer's injury would be one of the best things to happen to the Cardinals. The Cardinals' problem this season has been their lack of patience offensively and their insistency on throwing the ball deep. They have big play weapons. They have great wide receivers, no doubt about it. But they've relied too heavily on throwing those deep balls, and it was getting predictable and it was getting simple for opposing defenses. So insert Drew Stanton, who really is a decent quarterback. But
He's
you
one of those
can't
guys who's made a career out of being that guy that you can count on to do just what he did this past week.
exactly. And you put him in, and all of a sudden you have to simplify that offense. You have one of the most productive and consistent running backs in David Johnson in the league. So you ride him, you give him all the carries that he wants, and then you throw just like the Vikings offense, Mitch. You throw simple short passes to get yourself down the field and get yourself into position to score. If you can just be patient, you can move the ball in the NFL. I don't care what team you're playing for. Okay? And so I know it was just the 49ers, but we saw David Johnson get a lot of touches. And I don't know exactly what his yards per carry average was, but I believe it was 6 or more. And they made short passes, and they did just enough to get down the field and score. So I don't know when Carson Palmer comes back. I sure hope that or that they understand that that was the best type of offense for them. You know, the Vikings don't have the weapons at wide receiver or at running back now with Peterson gone, um, but they're still scoring. They don't have the weapons that the
Yeah.
Cardinals have, but they're still scoring points. Now add weapons to that team, and you have the Cardinals, and you have a team that can continue to score and that will move the ball and that will be in much better shape than they are playing that impatient, uh, air it out type offense.
There's more good news for the Cardinals as Carson Palmer has been cleared to practice Wednesday. It looks like he'll be able to play on Monday night against the Jets after missing this game against the Niners. So, against the Jets, that's a beat up secondary. They've been getting thrown around the past couple of weeks. So, is that what you're expecting to see from here on out, or do you see? Let me stop and start again.
Okay.
For the Cardinals, do you expect to see them return to the impatient offense that they were running under Carson Palmer, or do you expect him to stand and play more like Drew Stanton, I guess, did last week?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not really sure. It's going to be one of those things that we'll just have to wait and see. But I can promise you, if they don't, or if they do revert back to that aired out inpatient offense, then I think they'll be in trouble. So even if they do that this week and they aren't successful, maybe they will switch back to the Drew Stanton type offense, um, because they'll understand that that's what got it done.
Speaking of quarterbacks coming back, Tom Brady, 406 yards and 3 touchdowns. I don't care if it was against the Brownies. It's good to see the best to ever do it get back out on the field and pick right back up where he left off. What do you think?
Yeah, good for Brady. I mean, it was a long time coming. You knew he would come out and kind of play with a chip on his shoulder or a vengeance, if you will. And he did exactly that. Like you said, 406 yards and 3 touchdowns. Um, the Browns just didn't stand a chance, unfortunately. Um, but we'll have to see with the Patriots going forward. I think they might be. Are they on a bye next week?
They are not. They are hosting the Bengals.
They're not. Okay. Well, see, that'll even be a decent game. I mean, more so than the Browns, at least. So,
Yeah, that other team in Ohio that wears orange.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Tom Brady can do because I do think that's a team that, when it's all clicking, will challenge for the AFC title. And I do believe it'll be against the Steelers, who had another quarterback that had a big day.
Yeah. Ben Roethlisberger, 380 yards and 4 touchdowns. I honestly don't know, so I'm going to ask you, how much of this was thrown to Antonio Brown?
Brown had 9 catches. He had 9 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown. And, I mean, he had the most catches with Le'Veon Bell. Bell had 9 catches for 88 yards, actually. But if we're talking receivers for the Steelers, I think the player of the day for them was Sammy Coates, who
Yes.
had 6 catches, 139 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And I will say that I started him on one of my
Hey,
teams
there you
this
go.
week, so I was pleased for that, or pleased to see that. But yeah, this is a team, and in fact, I just was looking at the schedule, and week 7 they actually play the Patriots play the Steelers, so that's that'll be my game of the week hands down. Um, yeah, so
Game of next week, not this week.
right, week 7. So next week's week 6.
Just to clarify.
And then week 7 will be Patriots Steelers, not in prime time, which is disappointing for me. It's Seahawks Cardinals that Sunday night, and then Texans Broncos on Monday, and the Thursday game is Bears Packers. So, I'd rather see that Patriots game over maybe any of those games, but that's okay.
Well, what do you think about this? What if sometimes in baseball this happens where, and it works a little bit easier because during the middle of the summer in baseball, all the games on Sunday are pretty much scheduled for the afternoon, and then they have that one primetime game, Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. What do you think about them doing that possibly in the NFL, where they just say, you know what, forget the Thursday night game, because me personally, I can't stand it. I think that Thursday night's reserved for college. The pros need an entire week to recuperate after playing on Sunday. You can't have them out there with one day of practice and a couple days of walkthroughs running around doing whatever they're doing. So what do you think about them just tentatively scheduling all games for Sunday and then flex a couple to, let's say, one to Sunday night and then another to Monday night? You think that's viable? Do you think that could work?
Well, they have Sunday night and Monday night.
But I'm saying,
I guess I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
but I'm saying they all just schedule them for the day, and then they figure out going into the week which game would be primetime game.
Yeah, I think that could work. I guess I don't see why not. It is always nice to see, a team like the Eagles, who no one expected to be good, plays the Vikings on that same week, week 7, and an Eagles-Vikings matchup now all of a sudden becomes huge, just like you said. So, yeah, if you're going into that, or even 2 weeks in advance, to be honest with you, just to give them a little more advanced notice, because I could have told you 2 weeks ago that the Vikings and Eagles should play in primetime. I like that idea. I don't know why they don't do it, but it could work.
Team that impressed me the most this past weekend got to be the Atlanta Falcons. What did you see from the Falcons this past week?
Well, I love the Falcons. I really, offensively, I love the Falcons. Their defense is a little shaky, but their offense is so fun to watch. So many options. They'll have a good test this week against Seattle's defense, but this team is good. Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman are the best 1-2 punch that I think I've seen at running back in quite a few years. They both had over 100 all-purpose yards last week. Coleman's more of the receiving running back, and Freeman's the runner. And they also have Mohamed Sanu, Julio Jones, and Jacob Tammy is a nice tight end, and those three garner enough attention to spread out the field to open things up for those two, Coleman and Freeman. So there are too many options for teams to worry about and scheme against. And I've said this before, but Kyle Shanahan is great for this team. He's had success everywhere he's gone as far as throwing the ball. Even when he was at Cleveland, we saw even shades of success, which is impressive for the Browns. The Falcons are good. I think they'll make the playoffs. I think they'll probably win their division the way the rest of the division is playing. But when they run into teams like the Packers and the Vikings, defensively, I'm not quite sure they'll be able to get it done.
I think their biggest test of the season this week is going to be this week when they head out to Seattle. And I want to see if this offense is for real. You just ran through the whole list of weapons that they have for Matt Ryan to use. But the Seahawks, despite struggling this season, they're still defensively dominant. They're allowing just 13 points per game. That's third in the NFL behind Minnesota and Philadelphia, the two teams that we keep coming back to as probably the best in the NFC right now. So I think we will get to learn a lot more about the Falcons after this weekend, especially if they can follow up what they did this past weekend in Denver with another impressive performance in Seattle. I don't see how you can deny two back-to-back performances like that. And interestingly, the Falcons, I was just reading before we came on the air here, the Falcons are actually going to be staying out west. They're not coming back to Atlanta. And I've never heard of that. But it's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, that's new to me as well. Do you know if are they staying in Seattle for the week, or are they headed to like Sacramento? What are they doing?
So, yeah, apparently they're headed up to Washington. They're going to practice at the University of Washington's facilities or something. I just kind of scanned this article. I'll link it in the notes so everybody can check it, get the full details. But yeah, just thought I'd mention that was a little bit unusual. At least you don't hear about that often, but you kind of wonder why. Because if you're just going to fly right back out to the West Coast, it seems like it would be better to just keep the guys out there.
Well, yeah, that's a 3 hour time difference. And what time do they play? Probably a 4 o'clock game.
I believe so.
Yeah, so I mean, why not get adjusted to the time zone? Kind of hang out there for a week, and it makes travel a little easier. You can relax, and um, I always think it's tough for the West Coast teams to go to the East Coast and play 1 o'clock games because your mental clock is ticking, and you're starting your game at 10 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
from where you're from. So this is kind of backward from what I would expect, but I don't know. I guess it's up to them, and we'll see how it works out.
Last week I asked you what the Buffalo Bills were, and now I'm starting to think they might actually be a good ball team. They beat the Rams 30-19, and it's not that the Rams are really that good. It's just that the Bills, with very little offense, put up 30 points against a Rams team, a Rams defense that is probably one of the better defenses in the league. What did you see from Rex Ryan's squad?
Uh, yeah, I really like the Bills. We talk about this every week as well. I think Tyrod Taylor is the kind of quarterback that, passing wise, he's solid enough. He'll get the job done. Um, but the way he can extend plays and even pick up some yards on the ground is very impressive. And so I am very impressed with the Buffalo Bills. And I really think going forward, and we said this in our season preview, we both thought the Bills would be a formidable team. And they struggled out of the gate, but I really think going forward they'll continue to be competitive in every game they play. Here's my question for you. We're gonna switch. We're gonna switch topics. Um, should Dak Prescott continue to start for the Cowboys even when Tony Romo is healthy?
I knew you were going to ask this because you love the Cowboys and you love Ezekiel Elliott. And frankly, at this point, after seeing last week, I'm not sure it really matters. The Cowboys are so good at running the ball that, yes, it's obviously better the better quarterback you have, but Dak Prescott provides a different style than Tony Romo. And though Tony Romo has been the guy in Dallas for as long as I can remember, he he's been injured quite a lot recently. And now you're to a point where do you go with the guy you're comfortable with, that's been there, that's shown what he's made of and has the pedigree and all that? Do you go with him or the kid who looks like he could be that next guy? And the way I thought about it, the first thing that I thought of actually was when this happened with the San Francisco 49ers a few years ago, when Jim Harbaugh was still coach, and I believe had to be Alex Smith when he was still there. He goes down, Colin Kaepernick comes in, takes that team to the Super Bowl because when Smith came back healthy, Harbaugh said, nope, we're sticking with Kaepernick. And, they didn't end up winning the Super Bowl, but they almost did. Alex traded away. We all know what's going on with Kaepernick now. But for that season, it seemed like the hot hand was the right pick.
Yeah, you initially said you don't think it matters, and that was the very first thing that I thought of when I was trying to figure out in my own head what I thought. But I think it does matter because Dak Prescott is doing everything the right way. The kid hasn't thrown an interception yet. Okay, he has He has 4 touchdowns passing, and he adds another dimension that Romo doesn't, and that's in the running game. He has 3 touchdowns on the ground to go along with those 4 touchdowns through the air, and he looks completely comfortable when he extends plays, and he runs the read option to perfection. Okay, and anyone really could with that offensive line.
Yeah.
But here's the problem: if they do reinsert Romo, and he even throws 1 interception or 2 interceptions. Think about that. Think about what happens if Tony Romo goes out there in front of the Dallas fans and throws 2 interceptions in the game. They're going to be screaming for Dak Prescott the way Cleveland Browns fans were screaming for Johnny Manziel for the longest time.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't the longest time. It was 2 years, but that's a completely different story. So if they do insert Romo after this Week 7 bye, so they play this week, they have a bye week, and people think Romo will be healthy enough to play in Week 8, he really better be on the short leash, or Jerry Jones is going to look like an absolute fool.
Yeah, and then when I said it doesn't really matter, I think it doesn't matter because they can win with both styles. You said, Prescott adds that whole new dimension, being able to run the read option and all that, but the Cowboys have also won playing most style of football. Just drop back pass, drop back, hand it off. I think the way Ezekiel Elliott has been running opens that offense up to being able to play both styles. So if it were me, I think I would stick with Prescott just because he's been so good. It's not that he's been good, for a backup, for a rookie. He's been good for an NFL quarterback of any caliber.
He's earned it. He's earned the start.
And it puts you in an awkward position with Tony Romo, a very highly paid quarterback, and Jerry Jones. He cannot get out of his team's way. He needs to just be the owner and not be the GM and the head coach and the cheerleader. And he needs to relax, but he never will. So maybe him putting Romo back into the starting role will, and maybe it'll teach him a lesson. I doubt it will, but maybe it will.
No, Jerry Jones is as stubborn as Donald Trump, to be honest with you, but that's not something we can get into with 2 minutes and 20 seconds
Yes,
left
quickly,
podcast,
the Buccaneers turn the Panthers over 4 times on their way to a 17-14 victory at Carolina. Ev, how much trouble are the Panthers in if Cam Newton can't play this weekend in New Orleans?
I think they're in trouble for the rest of the year, even if Cam Newton does play. Their offensive line can't block. Even when Newton was in there, they were turning the ball over, and they're already 1-4. While the Falcons are 4-1, and there are a lot of other teams that are good enough in their divisions to get the wild card spot. So I think the Panthers are in trouble
Player of the week
in general. I was going to say, speaking of that game,
I do have a player of the week from it. Roberto Aguayo, the kicker from Tampa Bay. This is a guy who he's got a considerable load of expectations on his shoulders. He was drafted in the 2nd round. Not very many kickers are. And when that happens, people either question it or they expect him to be great. So here he is in his first Monday night game. And yes, he did miss 2 field goals, but he also made 2 5-yarders and a 38-yard game winner as time expired. So, player of the week. It can be anybody. Let that be a lesson. It can be anybody.
Pick. Yeah, that's terrible. Okay, Aguayo, the 2nd round pick, is
he was the player of the week, not player of the year. Player of the week.
Well, okay. Do you know in the game?
Nah, he was better than 50%. He only missed 2. He made 3.
Hey, how many did he make?
Yeah.
He made 3?
Let's hear your player of the week then.
Okay, so he was a little better than 50%. Okay, I'll give you a player of the week. How about Martellus Bennett, who has 6 catches for 67 yards and 3 touchdowns. 3 of them. So he scored 21.
He scored as many as it took for the Buccaneers to win. Ev, it's time for us to get out of here. Tell the people where you can be located on the interwebs.
Well, if you didn't listen to the beginning of the show, you can find me at Skilliter, Skilliter, or you can email me at evan@suitsandlaterals.com. Thanks for listening to the show, and also
Yes,
leave a
please.
review,
I'm
rate
at
the
Great
show. We'd
Gatsky
love
on
to
Twitter,
hear from you. Mitch, how about you?
GATZKE, MitchGatsky.com, CampusPressBox.com. Again, at Suits Laterals on Twitter. Hello at SuitsandLaterals.com. That'll do it for me. Please support your local businesses. Ev, take us out.
Yep, don't forget to check out evanskilliter.com for weekly picks. You've listened to Suits and Laterals. I'm Evan Skilliter. That's Mitch Gatsky. Tune in next time. Until then, stay right and stay real.